variant. As far as, there's basically 6 different styles of horns that were manufactured, from 53 through 96. We're going to talk about all of them. 53 to 57, early 57, somewhere in the middle of the year. They're called a seashell style horn. And we've got the 53, original 53 up here, as well as 56, 57 that are very similar. 58 and 60, they changed the back of the horn. So instead of having a big dome on the back, that you'll see, we'll go through each of these individually in the various years. They went to what they call the solenoid style, so they changed the back side. We'll see that as well. We moved over in 61, 63, they revised how they cast it on the front. You got away from the seashell. They maintained the back, the solenoid style. Note the diameter of this, by the way. That'll be another difference in configuration. 64 to 75, 74. Almost everybody's seen probably these. These are small style, solenoid style horns. So they changed the front and went smaller on the back. 74, they changed the front housing. They elongated the belt. And then once you got into the 76 generation, it went to this style of horn. This is basically it's a metal front, got the solenoid on the back, and plastic in the middle for the trumpet. And there's a ton of these out there. So, as we continue forward, to break things down, horns came in a number of different notes. Right? So you have a low note and a high note. You also have a very high note. You have an alarm horn. Low note horns are typically D. High note horns vary A, C, or F. F is the high note for not only some of the late C4s, but it was also the note for the alarm horn that occurred starting in 68 is optional. So when you hear that real high frequency pitch, that back and forth from 68 to 72, that's what you hear, that high. Relative to how we judge this from an originality standpoint, it's not a whole lot of points. Anywhere from 3, 2, originality for 78, all the way up to 210. All right, horn design. Okay, so I went to my trusty garage. I took out this magic horn. Very good. I took it apart. But we have the front. Or bell. Inside is a metal diaphragm with a pole, a white paper gasket. Goes in between the diaphragm and the back. Inside the back is a coil. That determines the note of the horn. That coil has a number of windings that go around. The pole piece on the diaphragm, as you see when it comes to you, that actually goes back and forth. The number of windings changes the frequency. The frequency change changes the pitch of the horn, and that's how you get the different notes. Basically have the back threaded, and they put a nut on the back of the horn, and that's how they put the bracket in this. So original horns are almost always. This one has a terminal connection, it's a single state. When we get to the C4s, they change and they go to a more complicated wiring scheme. It's a terminal connector. The horns are all the same from the front to back standpoint. Cars, trucks, Corvettes, Chevelles, Camaros, all the same as far as the basic construction. What's different is the brackets. Body diaphragm, they're all the same configuration. The difference is the brackets, the wire terminal connection can be different depending upon whether it's an early application or late application. And also the assembly orientation between the bell and the back. So if you take a look at the horn pieces that are coming around, those horns are at basically 6 uniform connection points between the front and the back. And you can change that at 60-degree increments all the way around. So you can take that back and that wire spade and that bracket and move it into any orientation relative to the front. Now, when they installed the horns originally, typically they wanted the outlets pointing down. Why is that? That's to keep any water, dirt, debris from getting into the horn and keep it from working. The various generations of the horns we have. Okay, so 53 to 57, early 57, actually that's been 1500, around 1500, is what's called a seashell style horn with a dome back. Okay, so I'm going to pass this around. This happens to be a 49 to 52 card, but it's pretty consistent configuration. Again, the major changes are brackets, And orientation of the seashell to the, well actually there shouldn't be any issues with that particular application, but it's basically the bracket. Now the connection is different as you move through. What you'll see in these particular pictures is the connection is actually on the backside of the seashell. You can see the various part numbers up there that will identify that. There's pictures here. The 55 to the early 57 vintage, they're 12 volts. No, there was a change in voltage systems in 55. If you have 55 with a 6-cylinder, you've got the 6-volt application. If you hook up 12 volts to a 6-volt horn, it's going to be very expensive to your Corvette horn. The finish is gloss black, and they're typically located between the grill and the radiator support. So here's the 56-57 horn assembly from the assembly instruction manual. You can see that it's basically mounted to the radiator support and off where the surround comes down on the top. It's pointed down. Okay, as we move forward, late 57 through 60. Then 1500 later in 57, they changed the back style. We do have a couple of pairs of the 57, late 57 to 60 styles up here that are originals. They're seashell fronts, so that's a different casting style configuration. And then they changed to what they call a cell-on-white style pad. So it's kind of like a different hat style in the back. It doesn't have that big dome that you see in the back. Horn numbers are 351, 352. Now the reason why I put the things in the parentheses, as you're looking later on in life here, the first 4 numbers are somewhere on the horn in some magical place. I think they put them buried inside. And what they did was they went in and they stamped the actual last 3 numbers of the part number onto the horn. Not only will they tell you the last 3 of the part number, it will typically tell you if it's a 12-volt horn. So again, very similar in location as far as installation. The low note horns on the right, high note horns on the left. In 1961, they changed the horn configuration on the very front side. So they went to a new style aluminum housing for the trumpet. So take a look at that. You'll notice it's no longer seashell style. It's more of a, it's got a more flattened horn, so it doesn't have that triangular shape. It's now more like a rectangular shape for the outlet. So 61, 62, you have 441 and 442 for the last 3. Finishes again gloss black. Installation location is very similar. It's a little bit different than the 61, 62, but it comes off that upper header bar underneath the front surround and points down. Here's the 61, 62. This is actually a 62. It's similar instruction manual. You can see where the horns are mounted. 63. The main difference between 61 and 62 versus 63 is the bracket and the orientation and mounting of the horn in the vehicle. Very similar in the style of the 2 sides, so it's the same type of configuration, but because they went to a radiator support, now the horns are mounted to the radiator support in 63, different from what they had in 61, 62, so the bracket's different, therefore the number changes. 63 is 455 and 456. The 12-volt horns again, painted gloss black, and they are dated. Air conditioning changes how the right-hand horn is installed in 63. If you look at the upper right-hand picture, they show that you want to orient the horn, basically rotate the horn slightly so that you gain about 3/8 of an inch of clearance to the condenser. All right, 64. 64 would change the diameter and size of the horn. So it has a similar configuration as the large 63 from a horn standpoint, with the way the sound or the air passes through it, but it's a much smaller diameter. 487 and 488 are the 64 to 67 horns. The standard horn installation in the assembly instruction manual picture here on the lower right-hand side of the screen. Let's talk about air conditioning. Again, they're playing around. They've got these horns on the radiator support. Now they need to move it from an air conditioning standpoint. They got a condenser line that runs over there. They got a condenser core up in front, and they have a dryer. 60 up through 65, the dryer is on the engine side of the radiator support. In 66, they take and they move the dryer shell onto the outside. So in 66 and through 67, they move it. They move it over onto the inner fender well. 68 to 70, we have a nice pair here from Larry. Appreciate him bringing his original 60s or his original 70s in. The 70s, a few things happened. It's still that very similar style. It's roaming around here, the 66 horn that you got in your hands, but they moved them. So now we got the shark nose. They pulled them off the radiator support and they put them up underneath on surround panel support. So there's a piece of steel that the surround panel comes across and is riveted to. And they hung horns off of it. Pretty much from 68 up to at least 72, maybe even all the way up to 78. So the horns are 245 and 246. No, in 68, the horn itself is actually mounted up underneath, right behind the left rear tire. So there's, as the tire fender well comes over, it's on the back side, so it's not getting all the material. So 71, 73, similar, very similar configuration. Interesting thing to note, in 71, they decided to thrift. They got rid of the high note. So the 245 stays the same. Right? So 245, 246 were the horns. 71, they went to a single 245. 72, they changed again. They went to the 032, as you can see by the numbers. Again, the alarm horn was the same number, it's a 938, very similar location. But there's a single horn, and it's mounted on the left side. They took away the right side in 71, and in 72 and 73. So it's only on the left side of the upper. 74, they changed the configuration of the horn again. If you look at this horn compared to that 66 that's rolling around, they elongated the trumpet, so the outlet gets longer here. 049 for the primary horn, and it's 059 for the primary horn at 75. Big asterisks up there. People obviously didn't like the fact that they only had one horn. From 71 to 73, they complained. They said, fine, you want to pay for a second horn, you can do it, check option U05. 76 to 79, they changed. 76, they went to this configuration horn. So now you no longer have this nice piece of die cast on the outside. Apparently they went in and trimmed it up. It's now a flat metal plate on the very outside. You've got 6 basic points where it gets assembled. You have a plastic, what I call trumpet. So the middle section here is plastic now. If you're looking for the part number on this one, if you've been looking at the ones that are coming through, they're either on the front or they're on the very back side of the kind of the horn output location. For 76, for the plastic style horn trumpet, it's basically here on the bottom. Again, it's black plastic front, the flat front face, and semi-gloss black metal back. I think the entire horn is painted semi-gloss black. It's kind of difficult to tell that the semi-gloss would stick to the plastic or not. And it's basically in the same location behind the grill in front of the radiator. Again, the high note horn is installed on the right side bumper side. Some things changed in 81. So I don't know if the early 81 horns mean the St. Louis built cars, if it means St. Louis and Bowling Green built cars. But the horn notes, as you can see, the low notes, 144 and 182 for the high note. Which is what they state, the dates are still the same, but I can't. The alarm horn in 80. The alarm horn in 80 stays. They moved the alarm horn in 1980 underneath the engine port. So when you're looking at operations, thinking about this straight up, when they move the configuration underneath the hood, what do you get a chance of doing? In order to break in to defeat the alarm, you go through the horn switch, or the hood switch, right? There's a switch on the hood that says, hey, somebody's in the hood, set off the alarm. So now you get the alarm horn protected. That's why they moved it underneath the hood. And if you look at the configuration aspects of the horn, and again, I don't know if the horn's still that same trumpet horn that was located behind the left rear wheel. It does state that it's a 10-point opportunity there. So you get 10 and 10 on an alarm horn, 78 through 80. In 81, they switched. 81, they figured out a way such that when those switches were manipulated to break into the car, that the primary horns now function and would beep. So they got rid of the extra horn. Same style finish and location. Again, the 80 alarm horn was behind the driver's side finger well. All right, 81 to 82. They changed the location point or the mounting location point of the horn, so the brackets changed. So instead of being kind of up off the bumper support and high up off the header bar, they moved them in front of the left and right. Horns, you can see the part numbers up there, 176, 203, semi-gloss black, very similar configuration as to what you see. Again, the brackets changed for the most part. 84 to 96. Reading in 84 to 96 technical information manual judging guide when it comes to horns is like finding the lost part. Very limited amount of information. There are no part numbers at all in any of the judging guides. All it tells you is they look like that last horn that's being passed around. They're mounted up in the front, up in front of the front wheel wells, and they're down low. Brackets are different from 84 to 96. The major thing that changed, from what I could tell, everything that was out there, is that in 91, they changed the high note horn from, I believe, a C note to an F note, which means obviously there has to be a part number change consistent with that configuration. So when you change the note, you change the number of windings, you get a higher pitch, it makes a different noise. But as far as configuration, location, everything that I can tell with all of the judging manuals from that point, there's no part numbers, it's very difficult to know what changed and what transitioned through. Finish with semi-gloss black, again, very similar configuration. It's a plastic style horn, and they're located up in the front. Alarm horn functionality, very similar to 8182. You got rid of the alarm horn, they programmed it in so that when something might try to break into the 84 to 96, it would actually operate the primary horns. I think that's it. Thanks to those people that are up there. I appreciate all the help. The people who may have brought something here today that didn't get identified, thank you for bringing things in.